Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings. We air this program every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and we broadcast it from Rajamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. This program will come to you in two parts. For the first part, we will introduce a song and discuss its main themes. The theme means what the song is about. Then we're going to listen to the song. And after we listen to the song, we will analyze the lyrics in the second part of our program. We will especially focus on anything which may be difficult to understand, any difficult vocabulary, any slang words, any idioms that we use in English. An idiom is like a saying where you use words where they don't mean exactly what the words say. So we will discuss anything like that, anything difficult to understand. Then we'll wrap up the program and we will have the news and the latest updates from the university as usual.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray, and I will be your host for the Musical Musings program. I'm an American English teacher here in Bangkok at Rajamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. So for today's musical choice, we are going to do the song The Stroke by Billy Squier. First, let's talk about Billy Squier a little bit. That is his real name. A lot of times singers will use fake names. We call that a stage name. No stage name here. Billy Squier, that is his name. And although most of his music is performed with a band, he doesn't have the same band that he always has performed with throughout his whole career. So when we talk about Billy Squier, we don't think of Billy Squier as a band. Sometimes the name of the person can also be a band. We've seen that before. I will give you an example. Charlie Daniels. We listened to one of his songs called The Devil Went Down to Georgia. A lot of times we will actually call it the Charlie Daniels Band because he has a band that he performs with. But Charlie Daniels is the name of the guy. Now, honestly, I'm not sure if that's a stage name, but still, that's the name he goes by, is Charlie Daniels. That's not the case here. Billy Squier, it will sound like when you hear the song, this will sound like a full band. You're going to hear just a band performing a rock song. It's not like one solo artist, but he actually is a solo artist, actually. So Billy Squier is just Billy Squier. That's it. It's just him. All right. So he is an American singer. He was born in 1950 in Massachusetts. I don't know if you've heard of that state. It is in the northeast part of America near New York. You might have heard of the city of Boston. Boston is the capital of Massachusetts. I will tell you that I am from Massachusetts. So if you have not heard of Massachusetts, you have now. That's my home state. So Billy Squier is from my state. He formed his first band. It was called the Rightneys or the Ritneys. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced because it was not a popular band. He formed them when he was only 14 years old. He was still a kid. So this was not like a really popular band. In fact, they did not perform anywhere at all. They just played together as a band, like in their garage or basement or wherever they practiced. They made no public performances. Squier's first public performance was actually in 1968, so he would have been about 18 then, maybe 17, depending on if he had his birthday yet. So he was 17 or 18 when he did his first public performance in Boston. He also formed a whole bunch of bands, and they broke up. It's not entirely clear why. It doesn't seem like, from his reputation, it doesn't seem like he was a difficult person to work with. Maybe for some parts of the music industry he was, which is what our song is going to be about today. But for the most part, as far as dealing with his band members, there doesn't seem to be like a really good reason why they broke up. They just kind of decided to do whatever, go do something else. So it just didn't work out. So he formed several bands. They all broke up until finally around the mid 70s. I think it was 1975, could have been 74. I'm not exactly sure when. He formed the Pipers, or Piper. Sorry, it was just Piper, not the Pipers. He formed Piper in the mid 1970s. And as far as I can tell, again, I don't know too much about the history of this band. It was only popular kind of locally. They did get some popularity, but it was mostly just locally. So it's not a band I'm really that familiar with. But from the history of the band that I can tell, it does sound like this is another band that Squier formed. So Billy Squier was forming most of these bands. Most of these bands that he was a member of, these bands that formed and died and formed and died, he was the one forming them. So he formed it in the mid 1970s. Once again, did not last that long. It lasted longer than most of his other bands, and they got, like I said, some local popularity. I think they even maybe put out 2 albums, if I believe. I don't have that note written down with me, but I believe that's the case. I think they put 2 albums out, but they broke up by 1979. And Squier, that's when Squier went solo. Remember, I said that Billy Squier is not really a band. All these other ones that I mentioned are bands. The Rightneys, Piper, those are all bands. Billy Squier went solo in 1979. And because he already had a little bit of local success, and that was in New York, even though he's from Massachusetts, he was in New York for some time. So biggest city in America, fairly popular. So he rose to fame pretty quickly once he started his solo career. In fact, the song we're doing today is from 1981. He went solo in 79, so this is only 2 years after he started his solo career. And the song we're doing today is probably his most famous hit. He's got a couple of other pretty big ones, but this is probably his biggest one. And it's off of his second album. His first album didn't do so great. It was mediocre, but it did well enough so that kind of kept him going. Got him a little bit of radio time, playtime on the radio. And of course, back then, around 1980, we didn't have streaming services, things like that. So most people got their music just listening to the radio. You could go out and buy cassette tapes as well, but that was about it, or records. But we didn't even have CDs back then. No streaming services, no internet, nothing like that. So getting played on the radio was what was important. And he got a little bit of radio playtime from that first album. So it was, again, not that popular, but it did well enough so that he could stick around, keep doing more music, and try to get bigger. And he did. Much bigger, very quickly. With his second album, he actually had 3 big hits on it, including the one we're going to do today, which is The Stroke. But he actually had 3 hits from that one album. Now, the interesting thing about him is that his career was pretty brief. And when I talk about his career being brief, I don't mean his full career. He's still around today. He was born in 1950, so he's about 73 or 74 now. I don't remember when his birthday is, so I don't know if he's had it yet. So I don't know if he's 73 or 74, but he's right around there. And he still performs today. So his career is not over. But as far as his big popularity is concerned, he was only really very popular for about 4 or 5 years. But what's interesting is that his songs were so popular that he's one of these a lot of times these careers kind of peak really hard, and when they do, they come crashing down. He peaked pretty hard, but then he's just kind of slowly faded. In fact, there was a little bit of a period in the 1990s where he got re-popular again, where he got a little bit popular again. So his career has not like collapsed, which is what you might expect from someone who got popular quickly. A lot of times, these ones that get popular quickly and then start to fade quickly, that's it. You never hear from them again. And the reason is because it's so brief, they usually don't have a lot of big hits. And he doesn't really have a lot, but they were so big. Like the song we're going to do today was really big. Everyone from the 1980s in America knows this song. Even people that don't like this type of music, so they might not like the song, they know it. Everyone's heard this song from the 1980s. Probably most people from the 1990s know this song. Now it's another 20, 30 years after that. There may not be everyone that knows this song now, but most people in America would know this song. All right. So again, he is still performing today. Yeah. And a lot of times older musicians, they just kind of perform their same old stuff that they've always done. He's still making new music. So he's still around, still making new music, even though he's pretty old. He's in his 70s, still going. All right. So that is Billy Squier. He's had a pretty successful career. Like I said, his peak was pretty short, but he's faded out pretty slowly as well. So pretty solid career. And this is his biggest song, I think. Sometimes that's a matter of opinion, and sometimes a song will do better in one country than it does in another country. So sometimes it depends on how you judge it. It may be difficult to know what a musician's best song is. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes a singer will have one song that's just way above all the rest. But I think this is probably his best song. Again, it's called The Stroke. As I mentioned before, it came out in 1981, so shortly after he started his solo career. So really famous, really fast. Probably, like I said, his biggest hit. And you could even say his first hit, although it's hard to say which one is first, of course, because he had 3 big hits on that second album. So they all came out at the same time. So is this his first? I don't know. But it's one of his first big hits. And it's a very interesting song. There's a lot. Boy, is it interesting. Because everyone thinks it means one thing, and it does not. The word stroke actually has several different meanings in English. When you're rowing a boat, especially if it's like a team event, a sport in college, every time you row, it's a stroke. When you swing a club in golf, every time you do that, when you're counting it, when you're for your score, that's a stroke. A stroke can be like when you have a medical problem that can kill you. That can be a stroke. When you use it as a verb, which we are doing here, although it's called the stroke, so you would think it's not a verb, but we really are using it as a verb here. When you use it as a verb is an action. It means like to pet something, like you could stroke a cat. But or in the case with this song, you can stroke an ego, which is a little weird. What does that mean? Your ego is like when you feel good about yourself. So what does that mean? How do you stroke an ego? To stroke someone's ego means that you are complimenting them. And a lot of times you're not being honest with your compliment. You're trying to get on their good side. You're trying to get them to like you by saying nice things about them, even if you don't mean those nice things. So that's what this song is about. But in the late 1970s and early 1980s, there were a lot of songs that were about sex or drugs, and it was a very conservative time, especially as we moved more into the 1980s. And so they would have to use words that didn't really mean that. And so the word stroking something kind of has that naughty, dirty meaning. Songs like that were popular around this time. So everyone assumed that that's what this song was about. And that's actually, to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why it got so popular, because everyone thought, oh my God, this song is so naughty. But of course, it doesn't use any naughty words. It's using other words that mean that. And so you can still play it on the radio. You can still listen to it because it doesn't say anything bad. But, ooh, it means something so bad. It actually does not. It has nothing to do with that. And, you might wonder, well, maybe it has nothing to do with that, but Billy Squier did that on purpose because he knew people would think that. Maybe, but I don't know. He came out pretty early on to clarify what the song was about. He actually didn't like that people thought that it was a naughty song. He didn't like that. He wanted people to know what the song was about because he was actually writing a fairly serious song. This song is actually about the music industry. And it's about how music executives take advantage of the musicians. They will stroke the musicians' egos, but they will also say bad things about them at the same time, as you'll see in the song. They'll say bad things about them too, to make it sound like, oh, you need me, the music executive, to get you to be successful. And then, of course, the music executives usually take a huge portion of the money, while the musician is doing, 80, 90% of the work? The music executive certainly does something, sure, because they might line up the concerts and things like that. They might manage all of those sorts of things. Get the album deals, record deals in place, things like that. But of course, the musician, I mean, they're writing the music, they're practicing it. That's what's being sold is the music. They're doing 90% of the work. And the music executives are taking a lot more than 10%. In fact, between the music executives and the managers and the record producers and all the other people involved, they probably take like half the money from these bands, or from, in this case, a solo artist, Billy Squier. That's what this song is about. So the stroke is referring to them stroking their egos, trying to get on the musician's good side, saying nice things about them. All right, so that's really what the song is about. It's actually a pretty serious song, which is why, like I said, Billy Squier kind of corrected people pretty quickly when they thought this song was, it's about sex. It has nothing to do with sex. It's about the music industry. All right, so let's get to the song. And for those of you joining us by YouTube, you know the deal. Can't embed the video here, so we'll give you a link in the upper right-hand corner. Click on that link. Watch the video. Come on back here for an explanation about the lyrics. Everyone else that's listening, either on radio or streaming, you should be able to listen just fine. So here we go. Let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So that was The Stroke by Billy Squier. And again, that song is about the music industry. Now, as always, we're going to have some lines in this song which are a little difficult to interpret, especially since we're getting both sides here. This is like a conversation almost between the musician and the music industry executive. And sometimes it's hard to know who's talking and what certain things mean. There's one particular verse here where part of it is a little hard to understand. All right. But most of the song is pretty clear. And again, it's about the music executive trying to stroke the musician's ego. Again, stroke means to pet. So, like you stroke a cat or a dog. And your ego is how you feel about yourself. So, what would that mean to stroke an ego? Again, like I explained, you're petting. Like when you pet your dog or cat, it makes them feel better. So you're trying to make someone feel better about themselves by saying good things about them. That's what stroking someone's ego means. Okay, so we start the song. Now, everybody, have you heard? If you're in the game. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, first of all, it's just saying, have you heard? In other words, he's going to tell you the story about the music industry. But in the game means in the music game. Are you in that industry? Okay. Then the strokes the word. So in other words, that's what it's all about. Getting your ego stroked. Don't take no rhythm, don't take no style. So what he's saying there is that a lot of times what these music executives will do also will promote groups, bands, singers that don't even have any musical talent. Got no rhythm, got no style. Doesn't take rhythm, doesn't take style. Maybe just takes the look, and they'll try to. They like the look of someone. Um, and it's funny that he wrote this song in 1981 because this is even more true today. There are so many boy bands who really don't have much talent. Maybe they dance pretty well, a lot of them, but they don't write their own songs. None of the boy bands write their own songs. Hate to say it because I know K-pop is very popular here in Thailand, and a lot of those are boy bands. Not all of them, of course. There's K-pop female singers as well, but a lot of them are boy bands. They never write their own songs, so none of them are really musicians. Most of them are just singing and dancing. They're not playing instruments, and when they're singing, everything is using auto-tune these days. So they don't even necessarily even have to sing well. So it's just the look. That's all the music executive is going for. Are these cute boys for the boy band? That's it. That's all that matters. And hopefully you can teach them to do some dance moves, and then you're all set. They don't have to be able to sing. They don't have to be able to write music. They don't have to be able to play an instrument. That did not really exist back in 1981. So Billy Squier was really seeing the future here. He kind of saw what was coming because it was already starting to change a little bit at that time, because you started getting these what we call glam metal bands. And in fact, we talked about one of those last week. I think it was last week, might have been the week before. We talked about one of those types of bands. So Billy Squier already saw this coming. Okay, so we got don't take no rhythm, don't take no style. Got a thirst for killing, grab your vial. All right, so got a thirst for killing. In other words, they're out for blood. They don't care. The music executive doesn't care. Doesn't care about the musician. Grab your vial. I'm not really sure what they mean there. In fact, I'll be honest with you. If you look up the lyrics to this song, some of them have different words there. So I can't even tell you if that's even the correct words. I think it is. I looked up the words on the most reliable website I could find. But I think, and in fact, even when you say grab your vial, it can be spelled two different ways with two different meanings. And if that's what he's saying, I would probably spell it a different way than what is on the lyric sheet that I have. So it's not clear what the word is there. But just take the general idea here. Just take the general idea. And that is that the music executive doesn't care about the musician, doesn't care about the music. Don't take no rhythm, don't take no style. By the way, when you say something doesn't take something, like when it says don't take no rhythm, don't take no style, first of all, that's bad English. That's bad grammar. It would be doesn't take any rhythm, doesn't take any style. But this is just the slang way people talk sometimes. What it means when you say something doesn't take something, it means it doesn't need it. So in order to be successful, you don't need to have rhythm, you don't need to have style, as far as the music executive is concerned. All right, so then we move on. You put your right hand out, give a firm handshake. So now we're making a deal with the music producer. Talk to me about that one big break. So again, the music producer is trying to stroke their ego. They're trying to talk about how they're going to have their big break. So what is a big break? What does that mean? For a musician, a big break means you have that one big opportunity that you take advantage of, and that's what makes you popular. You can use the same thing for an actor or any sort of artist. So an actor or actress, they finally land this big role. They've been playing these little small parts, small parts, small parts. They do a good job in them. So people kind of like them. A few people might notice them, but they're having trouble getting, a bigger role. Finally, some director, some casting person, whoever it is, decides, you know what? I think that person would be really good in a bigger role. So they finally get this bigger role in some movie or some television show. That is their big break. So that's what we're talking about here. So the music producer is talking to him about his one big break. So telling him, "Oh, I'm gonna do this for you. I'm gonna do that for you." So really trying to win over the musician. It continues, spread your ear pollution both far and wide. So pollution is kind of a funny saying there. So again, we're going back to this whole idea of how the music executive does not really care about the music. So this is someone that just has the look that the music industry executive wants. We want this person. But they call it ear pollution. Pollution, like PM 2.5, that sort of thing. It's not good. It's gross stuff that you don't want around. People throw trash on the ground. That's pollution. The bad stuff in the air, that's pollution. You put chemicals in the water, that's pollution. So ear pollution, they're talking about terrible music. Spread your ear pollution, both far and wide. When we say far and wide, it means it is a saying, but that one actually does kind of mean what it says. Far and wide. So you're spreading the music everywhere. All right. Then we get to the chorus. Stroke me. Could be a winner, boy. You move quite well. So again, we're talking about, okay, so the music executive is saying you could be a winner. You move really well. So again, this is this whole thing. This is why I say Billy Squier was really seeing the future here. You move quite well. That was like the only thing they worried about. The look. I was talking about the look before, but here it sounds like they're talking about your ability to move and dance. Yeah. That's really the only talent a lot of these pop groups, bands, singers need to have now. They don't write their own songs. Billy Squier did. He wrote this. And that's why he wrote this. They don't need to play their own songs, write their own songs. Most of them don't play an instrument. Now with auto-tune, they don't even need to be able to sing well. I mean, you can kind of tell something's auto-tuned, so it's better if they sing well. Helps. But they don't have to. Don't have to sing well. If you can do a little dance move, that's all you need. So you could be a winner, boy. You move quite well. Stroke me. You got your number down. All right. So what does that mean? You've got your number down. Your number, when we say that, we mean your act. And when we say you've got it down, it means you're doing it well. You're performing it well. I have to guess that he means the movements again because he says you move quite well. You could use that for music to say you've got your number down. It means you've done a lot of practicing and your music sounds good. My guess is they don't mean the music here because we're going back to you move quite well. So you've got all your dance moves down. When we say you've got something down, it means you've practiced it, you know it well. Okay. Stroke me. Say you're a winner, but man, you're just a sinner now. Okay, so here's where he's saying something bad about him. He's just a sinner now. So he's a bad person. He's no good. Being a sinner means you're doing a lot of things wrong, usually about morals, morally wrong. Um, so the music executive is saying, oh, you could be a real winner, but you need me. You need me to be successful because right now, no, you're a sinner. So again, the music executive is talking him up, saying he's got the moves. You've got it down. You know what you're doing. Oh, but you need me. Okay. So that's what it's saying there. And then we get to the next verse. You put your left foot out, keep it all in place. Not really sure what this one means. Work your way right into my case. Now, again, some of the lyrics listed in some other places will say work your way right into my face. So we don't even get a lot of agreement on the lyrics. Then it goes on to say, you make my backbone slide. So what is this? What does this all mean? All right. So it's a little hard to tell exactly. But when you're sticking your foot out, a lot of times what you're doing when we use that phrase, you're putting your foot like in between a door. Someone tries to shut the door and you put your foot in the way so the door can't shut. So what this sounds like is going on here is the music executive is trying to force his way in. And that's why it says right into my case. Case, a lot of times you keep money in a case. So right into my case. Although, like I said, some people when they listen to the lyrics say right into my face. The lyric sheet here I have, I tried to get the best one. Says into my case. So trying to get at their money. And what does it mean when we say you make my backbone slide? That's weird. That's not a normal saying that we use. So what does he mean by that? It is hard to tell. I would, in this context, the way I think about it, your backbone is when you do like that, it's like you do that, it's like you're uncomfortable. So the way I feel this is what I think this is saying is that the music executive is trying to kind of wedge his way into this guy's music and take his money. And so he's making this person, in this case, Billy Squier, because he's really singing about his own experience here. So he's really making Billy Squier feel uncomfortable. And the reason I think this is about all of that is because of what the next two lines say. But when you found you bled me, you skip on by. What does that mean? When you found you bled me? Bled, that's bleeding. What does that mean? This actually is a saying. We have this saying in English about someone bleeding you. A lot of times we'll say they bleed you dry. It means they take all of your money. That's what this is about. Taking all their money. And skip on by just means you walk past them, you leave them. So what this is saying is the music executive takes all your money from the musician and then he's out of there. Goes on to the next musician to take all of their money. So skip on by. All right. And then it starts with the chorus, and they do change a couple of lines in the chorus. Stroke me. But then it says, give me the business all night long. Okay. When someone is giving you the business, it means they're lying to you. They're conning you. They're trying to trick you. So giving him the business. This is about, again, stroking his ego, but telling him stuff that's not even necessarily true. So trying to win him over, get him on his good side. So the business executive is trying to get the musician to like him, giving him the business all night long. Um, and then we have stroke me again, and then it says, "You're so the ghetto boy." What does that mean? You're so the ghetto boy. Oh, that one's a little weird. This one again is a little hard to interpret, but a ghetto boy is going to be someone that's not really good. Not really good. Someone that plays tricks on people. Back at this time, a ghetto kind of has a little bit of a different meaning now. But back at this time, when you think of the ghetto, you think of it's a poor area, and that still is used that way now. But back in the early 80s, late 70s, you also think of people playing tricks on people a lot of times, and a lot of times it is to take their money. So you're a ghetto boy. In other words, you're playing tricks on everyone, trying to take their money. That's what being a ghetto boy is here. Okay, and then we continue on, stroke me, but then we get back to the same lyrics where it says, "Say you're a winner, man, but you're just a sinner now." All right. So then we have a little bit of a break there, and then we get on to the final verse. "Better listen now, said it ain't no joke. Let your conscience fail you, just do the stroke." Okay, so again, a little hard to understand, but what it's talking about here when it says let your conscience fail you, this is a little hard to understand because it's difficult to understand who is even talking here. Is this the musician or the executive? But when we're talking about let your conscience fail you, your conscience is like the little voice in your head that tells you whether something is right or wrong. So this is saying ignore the little voice in your head telling you to do what's right. That would be your conscience failing you. So I'm thinking they're talking to the music executive because you're telling the music executive to do the stroke. That's who's doing it, is the music executive. So better listen now. It ain't no joke. Let your conscience fail you because it's not the right thing to do. Just do the stroke. Don't take your chances. Keep your eye on top. Do your fancy dances. There again, we talk about dancing. You can't stop. So here I think they're talking about actually the music executive dancing around like verbally. So I think they're playing I think this is kind of a play on words here. Again, a little hard to understand. Billy Squier has never explained what every line in this song means. He's just explained generally what it means. And it means this music industry thing. So I think that's what they're talking about here when it says do your fancy dances. We're talking about the music executive dancing verbally. Reason I think that is because it says you can't stop. You just, and then it gets back to stroke me. And it just repeats that all the rest of the way through the song until we repeat that one line, say you're a winner, man, but man, you're just a sinner now. So that's how we end the song. All right. That's it for that song. So this was kind of a bit of a long episode today. We had a long song. So let's close it out here pretty quickly. As I said, this is probably Billy Squier's biggest hit. I also mentioned that his career was pretty brief in terms of at its peak. He's actually had a long career. He's still performing now, but the peak of his career was pretty brief. So that, as you can probably guess, that would mean that he doesn't have a whole lot of big songs. But this is certainly not his only big one. Lonely is the Night is a really big song by Billy Squier. Pretty different style as well. It's a little bit more pop music, kind of. My Kind of Lover is another big hit. He's got a handful of other smaller hits, which some people might even argue are big hits too. They're just smaller compared to these. They were still popular. But he's got several hits, including a few big ones. So go check them out. Again, the other two biggest ones are probably Lonely is the Night and My Kind of Lover. Go check out those songs. He's a really good performer, as you can hear in this song. This is kind of a really fun song. Again, some of the lines are a little hard to understand, but it's a fun song. So go check out some of his other songs. Like I said, there are different style too. So he's very creative. He's got many different styles of music he can do. A lot of musicians, you hear a couple of their songs, you can recognize them again. There's one band in particular called George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Once you've heard one of their songs, you have heard them all. He's actually got a couple of good songs. I kind of like his couple of songs that are good, but boy, his music gets old fast because they're all the same. Billy Squier's got quite a range, so give him a listen. Check out more of his music. All right, thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us and tune back in next week for another great musical selection. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical